He was a man who owned the world, but couldn't understand it. She was a woman who understood the world, but was terrified to live in it. Lena Petrova wasn't just shy. She was drowning in a sea of noise. While she served burnt coffee at Café Grinzing for minimum wage, her mind was a prison, echoing with the sound of every language spoken around her, not as words, but as raw, painful data. Griffin Hawke was a man who saw everything as a transaction until his multi-billion-dollar empire hinged on a single conversation he couldn't control. He didn't need a translator. He needed a miracle. He found her hiding in plain sight, a woman who could silence a room of enemies, but was too afraid to ask for a raise. This isn't a fairy tale. It's the story of what happens when a priceless gift is found by a man who knows how to write the price tag. The smell of burnt coffee, stale disinfectant, and damp wool was the smell of Lena Petrova's life. At 24, her world was a cage built of 4 square blocks. It stretched from her tiny, rent-controlled apartment, with its peeling wallpaper and rattling pipes, to the Café Grinzing, a once charming Viennese-style coffeehouse in downtown Chicago, now slowly decaying under new, indifferent management. Lena was, by all accounts, invisible. She was the pale girl with the fawn-colored hair pulled back in a knot so tight it made her eyes water. She was the waitress who never made eye contact, who flinched when a customer raised their voice, and who apologized profusely when they bumped into her. Her manager, a perpetually stressed man named Bob, barely knew her name, calling her honey or you with equal irritation. But Lena's shyness wasn't a personality trait. It was a defense mechanism. It was survival. To Lena, the world was painfully, deafeningly, excruciatingly loud. She didn't just hear language, she absorbed it, a constant, involuntary psychic download. It was a neurological quirk, a crossed wire in her temporal lobe that had been there since she was a child. When people spoke, she didn't just hear the words. She heard the structure. She felt the ache of a misplaced modifier, the subtle aggression of a specific dialect choice, the laziness of a poorly conjugated verb. The café was her daily torture. It was an unfiltered assault. The kitchen staff, 2 brothers from Ecuador, argued in a rapid, sloppy Spanish. She could feel the clipped consonants and elided vowels as they bickered over prep lists, the sound scraping against her mind like a wire brush. The hipsters at table 4, fresh from a semester abroad, mangled French phrases they'd learned online. Their poor grammar and awful accents, a dissonant, grating chord in her head. The finance bros by the window shouted in an English so brittle with bravado, so full of empty jargon, it felt like tiny stinging needles. She was a living, breathing receiver, tuned to every channel at once, with no off switch and a broken volume dial. Lena kept her head down. Her internal volume turned as low as it would go. Her only solace was wiping tables, the mundane, rhythmic task that let her mind go quiet, focusing on the simple, physical act of erasing a coffee ring. On a Tuesday, the rain was a relentless, cold sheet, and the cafe was packed. The noise was unbearable, a physical weight pressing down on her. A large group had taken the private alcove, a mix of stern-looking German executives, aggressively polished Mandarin-speaking investors, and a pair of silent, watchful Arabs from a Gulf state, all in dark, expensive suits. Their table was a war zone of overlapping, high-stakes sounds. Lena, her tray heavy, was trying to deliver a latte to a nearby table when the argument at the alcove exploded. "This is completely unacceptable," a German man barked, his voice sharp enough to cut glass. He slammed his hand on the table, and Lena physically flinched, dropping a spoon. He continued in his native tongue, his words precise, angry, and laden with technical terms. A young American translator, sweating in his cheap suit, stammered, He says the specs are not good." The lead Chinese negotiator, a woman with hair like black glass, sneered. She replied in a smooth, tonal Mandarin, her voice quiet, but carrying an unmistakable edge of contempt. The translator, growing paler, turned back to the American leading the delegation. She says you are not being truthful." It was an avalanche of diplomatic failure. The air crackled with hostility. At a small table in the corner, nursing a black coffee he hadn't touched, sat Griffin Hawke. He wasn't part of the loud group, but he was watching them with the coiled intensity of a predator. His face, which belonged on the cover of Forbes, and frequently was carved from granite. He was watching his flagship Odyssey shipping line, a $10 billion acquisition, circle the drain. This was the final, desperate meeting with the Rhine-Sino consortium, and his translators, his $500 an hour translators, were failing him. They were drowning. The argument escalated. The Qatari financier, a regal-looking man who had been silent, finally spoke. His Arabic was crisp, cutting, and final. It was a short, sharp declaration of dismissal. The American translator just looked blank, his mouth slightly open. I don't have Arabic, sir. I'm sorry." The Qatari man stood up, signaling the end of the deal. The Germans began to pack their briefcases. It was over. Griffin Hawke closed his eyes. A muscle in his jaw clenched. He had just lost his company. And then a new voice cut through the chaos. It was small, reedy, and terrified. "He says this is a waste of time," Lena said, her voice a reedy whisper. She hadn't even looked up from wiping a spill on a nearby table. The entire room went silent. The Qatari man, halfway out of his chair, froze. Lena flinched, realizing instantly she'd spoken aloud. Her face flushed a violent, painful crimson. I'm sorry, I heard." Griffin Hawke's eyes snapped open. He looked, truly looked, at the waitress for the first time. He saw the cheap, faded uniform, the trembling hands, the panic in her eyes. The German man, intrigued, pointed a finger at her. He spoke in German, his tone a harsh command. What did the Chinese woman say? Exactly. Lena shrank, her knuckles white on the cleaning rag. She looked like she was about to bolt. She didn't say the specs were not good. She said... Lena hesitated, translating the concept, not just the words. She said, the logistical projections are not just insufficient. They are a structural fantasy. And she didn't say Mr. Hawke was not being truthful. She said he was selling wind. It's an idiom. A deadly, absolute silence. The Chinese negotiator stared at Lena, her eyebrows raised in shock. She gave a single, slow nod of confirmation. The Qatari man sat back down. He looked at Griffin, then at Lena. He spoke again, this time in a rapid, complex stream of Arabic, a torrent of technical objections about port depth, tonnage displacement, and insurance bonds. Lena listened, her eyes closed for a second, as if bracing for a physical blow. Then, in a flat, terrified monotone, she translated it. Perfectly. She translated the technical data. She translated the implied insult about Hawke Global's lack of preparedness, and most importantly, she translated the window of negotiation he had left open in his final clause. Griffin Hawke stood up. He walked past his own useless, expensive team. He stood directly in front of Lena, who looked like she was about to faint. He didn't ask how. He didn't ask why. He was a man who recognized a lifeline. He pulled a black Amex Centurion card from his wallet. It looked alien on the sticky café floor. My car is outside. You're coming with me. Lena looked at the black card, at the angry consortium, at her manager, Bob, who was storming over, his face purple. "Hey, what's going on? You girl, get back to work!" It was too much. The noise, the stare of the powerful men, the anger of her boss, the world which was always too loud, finally became a deafening roar. Lena's eyes rolled back, and she did the only thing she could. She fainted. Lena woke up to the smell of hand-stitched leather and the faint, citrusy scent of a cologne that cost more than her yearly income. The silence was the first thing she noticed. It was a deep, padded, absolute silence, so profound it was almost a sound in itself. She was in the back of a Maybach, gliding through the city. She bolted upright, her heart hammering against her ribs. "Where? What happened? My shift." "You fainted." Griffin Hawk's voice came from the opposite seat. He wasn't looking at her. He was scrolling through his phone, his face illuminated by the cold blue light. "My security chief, Kieran, brought you to the car. You've been out for 3 minutes. You hit your head on the table on the way down. According to Kieran, you're fine." I have to get back," Lena stammered, rubbing her temple. "Bob will fire me. You're done." He said it with such finality, it hung in the air like a judgment. He put his phone away and finally, really, looked at her. His eyes were a pale, piercing grey, and they held no warmth at all. They were the eyes of a man who calculates, not a man who feels. "I'm Griffin Hawk. Those men in the café were about to terminate a deal that underpins my entire logistics division. You, for reasons I do not yet understand, stopped them. You haven't saved the deal, but you've bought me 24 hours. I hear things," Lena stammered, pulling at the hem of her apron. She felt exposed, a bug under his microscope. It's a problem, a neurological thing. It's just noise." "It's a solution," Griffin corrected her, his voice flat. "I have a final, last-ditch negotiation in Geneva in 2 days. The Odyssey deal. It's failing because of mistrust. Mistrust is born from bad translation. I need you in that room." Lena stared at him, as if he'd just started speaking in tongues himself. "Mr. Hawk, I'm a waitress. I can't go to Geneva. I've never even been on a plane. I have to. I have a life. I have responsibilities." "You have a grandmother," he interrupted. Lena's blood ran cold. "What?" "Matilda Petrova, your grandmother and sole guardian. She's at St. Jude's private care, stage 4 congestive heart failure. The experimental drug trial she's on, the one keeping her stable. My pharmaceutical subsidiary, Hawk Global Pharma, funds it. I just checked." Lena stopped breathing. The air in the car was too thick. "You checked? You looked her up? How did you even—" "My name." "Your manager, Bob, was yelling your full name when you fainted. It took my team 4 minutes to find every detail of your life," he said, not unkindly, but as a simple statement of fact. "I don't hire people I haven't vetted, and I don't make offers I can't back up. I will pay you $100,000 for 1 week of your time, cash." $100,000. It was an abstract number, a joke. "And," he continued, leaning forward, "I will personally ensure your grandmother's care, all of it, is covered indefinitely. She will be moved to a private facility. The best doctors, the best equipment. She will want for nothing." This was not an abstract number. This was Matilda's life. The bills were piled on her kitchen counter, a monument to her daily failure. "Why me?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "You have translators. You had a team of them." "I have idiots," Griffin snapped, the first flash of real emotion. "They translate words. They're dictionaries. They hear a German word for joke, and they say, joke. You heard joke, and translated it as structural fantasy. You understood the business context, the Chinese negotiator, selling wind. That's not a literal translation. It's an idiom. You knew it. You didn't just translate, Lena. You analyzed. I don't know how, she pleaded, tears welling in her eyes. The panic was rising again, the walls of the car closing in. It comes in. It's so loud. I'm not smart, Mr. Hawke. It's just noise. I repeat the noise. Please, I just want to go home. I am offering you a better home, Griffin said, his voice softening, but only slightly. It was a strategic shift, not an emotional one. I don't care if you're a genius or a parrot. I just need the noise. 1 week, Lena. You'll be on a private jet in 5 hours. You'll have a new wardrobe. You'll have security. You won't have to speak to anyone but me and the people in that room. You can have all the silence you want. Then, after 1 week, you can go back to wiping tables. But your grandmother will be safe. Forever. He was offering her a golden cage, but the cage she was in now was made of medical debt, dread, and the constant, screaming noise. They'll look at me, she whispered, the old panic rising. The thought of a boardroom, of all those eyes, all those voices, aimed at her. They'll look at me, Griffin said, and she knew it was true. You're just the echo. You're the one who makes the noise make sense. He leaned forward, and for the first time, his corporate mask slipped. She saw the raw desperation underneath. He wasn't a king offering charity. He was a king about to be checkmated, and she was the only piece that could save him. Please, Lena, I don't know how you do it, and I don't care, but I can't lose this deal. Lena thought of Matilda's hand, papery and thin, gripping hers. She thought of the eviction notice taped to her apartment door. She thought of the screaming noise in her head, and the blessed, padded silence of this leather-bound tomb. She took a shaky breath. Okay, I'll go. Griffin Hawke sat back, the granite mask sliding back into place. The desperation vanished, replaced by cold efficiency. Good. Kieran, he spoke to the driver, take us to the Givenchy boutique on Rodeo, then Teterboro Airport. Get her a passport. Get her whatever she needs. Call legal. I want a contract. He turned back to Lena. Welcome to Hawke Global. Geneva was a world of silent, heavy luxury. Lena had never known quiet could have a texture. The Beau Rivage hotel suite Griffin had booked for her was larger than her entire apartment building. The carpet was so thick it muffled her footsteps, swallowing all sound. The air was still. The vast, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Lake Geneva, a placid, grey-blue sheet of glass that didn't even seem to move. For the first 24 hours, Lena just sat on the silk-covered chaise lounge, staring at the lake, reveling in the silence. It was the first time in her memory that her head was quiet. Griffin had been true to his word. No one spoke to her. Kieran, the silent security chief, who looked like he'd been carved from the same granite as his boss, would knock, leave a tray of food, and disappear. A stylist, a brisk, efficient Frenchwoman, had come, taken her measurements in mute efficiency, and left behind a wardrobe of blacks, navies, and greys, clothes so expensive they felt like armor. She touched the fabric of a simple black dress and knew, instinctively, that it was worth more than her grandmother's first 3 months of care. But the silence was just the air before the storm. The morning of the negotiation, Lena felt sick. The silence was no longer comforting. It was oppressive. She put on a simple black Givenchy dress. The fabric was heavy, real. She felt like a child playing dress-up, a ghost in a rich woman's clothes. Griffin met her in the lobby. He too was in armor, a custom Brioni suit that radiated power and cost. He looked her up and down, his eyes analytical. "You look fine," he said, not as a compliment, but as a statement of fact. "Let's go over the rules. You do not speak unless spoken to. You do not offer opinions, analysis, or thoughts. You do not exist. You are a conduit. You translate only what I, or the other party, says. No more, no less. Understood? Yes, Mr. Hawke." "Griffin. You call me Griffin. Mr. Hawke makes me sound like my father." "Yes, Griffin." The boardroom was on the top floor of a glass tower, a sterile, cold room that seemed to float over the city. The consortium was already there. Mr. Bjornsson, a towering Swede with ice-blue eyes and a face that looked like it had been carved by a glacier. Ms. Al-Jamil, the Qatari financier from the café, veiled and looking impossibly regal, and their team of lawyers, all of whom looked hungry. The tension in the room was a physical thing, like the pressure before a thunderstorm. Griffin began, his voice calm and strong. "Gentlemen, Ms. Al-Jamil, thank you for this. I believe we can find a path forward." Bjornsson cut him off, not rudely, but with absolute authority. He began to speak in a deep, booming Swedish. His tone was firm, his words rapid and formal, and he did not smile. Griffin's official translator, a nervous man from Berlitz, whom Griffin had clearly brought as a prop, started. "Mr. Bjornsson says they are here as a courtesy. But," "He says," Lena's voice cut in, low and clear. All eyes snapped to her. She was looking at Bjornsson, not Griffin. "He says, we are here out of politeness, Mr. Hawke, but our patience is finished. Your port fees are not just high, they are unnegotiable." But the word he used, it means morally offensive. He feels you are robbing him. Bjornsson's cold blue eyes widened, just a fraction. He was surprised by her fluency, by her precision. He hadn't expected the waitress. Griffin's face remained impassive, but he nodded slightly. He had his new weapon. "Tell him," Griffin said, "that Hawke Global has already conceded 10% on the container fees. That is more than fair, and it's my final offer." Lena turned to Bjornsson, and the switch happened. It was something Griffin hadn't seen before. The shyness didn't just evaporate, it was replaced. Her posture changed, her shoulders straightened. She looked Bjornsson directly in the eye, and when she spoke, it was in flawless, formal Swedish. Her voice had a new cadence, a new confidence. It was as if another, much stronger person was wearing her body. She delivered Griffin's message, but she didn't just translate. She framed it. She used a specific, formal structure that conveyed respect, not aggression, but also absolute finality. Bjornsson, visibly surprised, replied in Swedish, his tone slightly less hostile, slightly more curious. He made a complex point about a rival company's shipping rates. Lena translated for Griffin. "He says 10% is an insult when they have a verified offer from Belmont Logistics for 15%. Griffin stiffened. Victor Belmont, his chief rival. How could he know that? That deal is under NDA. He muttered to himself. Then to Lena. Tell him Belmont can't guarantee the delivery window. Our Odyssey line is 20% faster." The negotiation became a high-wire act. For 4 brutal, relentless hours, Lena switched. She was a conduit, as he'd asked, but she was so much more. When Ms. Al-Jamil launched into a complex Arabic argument about Sharia-compliant financing and insurance structures, Lena didn't just translate the words, she translated the concepts. She used the correct, equivalent English financial terminology, a high-level language the Berlitz man would never have known. She was fluent not just in Arabic, but in finance. When Bjornsson used a folksy Swedish idiom about not buying the pig in the sack, Lena translated it to Griffin as, "He's not willing to buy a black box asset. He needs to see the internal auditing for the last 6 months. He's accusing us of hiding fuel cost overruns." Griffin watched, mesmerized. She wasn't just a parrot. She was an analyst. She was changing the shape of the conversation. When she spoke German to their lawyers, she was sharp and precise. When she spoke Swedish, she was formal and firm. When she spoke Arabic, she was respectful and intricate. The shy girl from the café, the one who flinched at a raised voice, was gone. In her place was a linguistic weapon, a master negotiator who was now, quietly and with terrifying efficiency, running the room. She wasn't just translating. She was persuading. Finally, after 6 brutal hours, Ms. Al-Jamil gave a short, curt nod. She spoke in Arabic. Lena translated, a small, tired sigh escaping her. She says, "Your new proposal and the clarity of your new associate have been sufficient. They will review the final terms. The deal is provisionally accepted." The room exhaled. Griffin's lawyers slumped in relief. As they filed out, Lena seemed to shrink. The Givenchy armor disappeared. The shoulders slumped. She was the waitress again, her hands shaking, her eyes downcast, the noise of her own success clearly overwhelming her. Griffin waited until they were alone in the elevator, a silent, mirrored box. "You were effective," he said. It was the highest praise he knew how to give. "Can I go home now?" Lena asked, her voice a whisper. "I did what you asked." "Not yet," Griffin said. "We have a celebratory dinner. The consortium leaders, you'll be attending." "But the deal is done," she protested, panic rising. I can't, I'm not." "The deal is never done," Griffin said, his grey eyes fixing on her. "And you didn't just translate, Lena. You persuaded. I need to know how. I need to know what you are." Before she could answer, his phone buzzed. A text. He looked at it, and his face darkened. "Kieran, what did you find?" He listened for a moment, his brow furrowing. "Are you sure?" "Find the whole file. I don't care what it costs. I want to see the original Lenox Hill report. Everything." He hung up, his jaw tight. He looked at Lena, his expression unreadable, cold and assessing. "Get changed. Le Chat-Botté. 8 o'clock. Wear the blue dress." Lena, her blood suddenly cold again, simply nodded. She had a terrible, sinking feeling that the price of her grandmother's care had just gone up. Le Chat-Botté was a temple of gastronomy. The cutlery was heavy silver, the glasses were paper-thin baccarat, and the air hummed with the quiet confidence of old money. Lena, now in a dark green velvet dress the stylist had provided, felt like a forgery, a cheap print hung in the Louvre. Griffin was already at the table, a bottle of Romanée Conti that cost more than her car breathing on the table. "To the Odyssey line," he said, raising his glass. Lena just lifted hers, her hand trembling so badly she almost spilled the water. "Griffin," she started, her voice barely audible. "We can't—" "Mr. Hawke." "Griffin," he corrected her, his voice firm. "You saved me $10 billion today. You've earned the right to call me Griffin." "Griffin? Why am I here? I'm not part of your world. I'm not like these people." "You are now," he said simply. He took a sip of wine. "I'm not a man who likes mysteries, Lena, and you are the biggest mystery I've ever encountered. In that boardroom today, you weren't shy. You weren't scared. You were different, powerful." Lena looked down at her plate. She hadn't eaten all day, but the thought of food made her sick. "When I'm in my own head, it's just me. I'm Lena." And everything is too loud. All the languages, the accents, the mistakes, they push against me. It's a physical pain. It's like 1,000 radios playing at once, and I can't find the off switch. So I stay quiet. I make myself small. It's the only way to make the noise bearable. She paused, struggling to find the words. But when I speak, when I have to speak, it's different. It's like the language takes over. The shyness is mine. The fluency is theirs. When I speak German, I feel precise. When I speak Swedish, I feel firm. It's not me talking. It's the language. I just let it use me. And for that 1 minute, for as long as I'm speaking, the noise in my head stops. It's just one clear channel. Griffin stared at her, fascinated. He had seen assets, weapons, and tools. He had never seen anything like this. He saw the profound, crushing vulnerability in her admission. She wasn't a shark. She was a rare, beautiful fish, and the deep-sea pressure of her own ability was killing her. For the first time, he felt something other than utility. He felt a strange, unwelcome prickle of guilt. "What you did today," he said, his voice softer than she'd ever heard it. "It was brilliant. And I understand now that it must be exhausting." "It is," she whispered, a tear escaping and tracing a silent path down her cheek. Just as this fragile human moment settled between them, a shadow fell across the table. "Griffin! What a coincidence! I thought I saw you skulking in the corner." Lena looked up. The man was movie star handsome, with a slick, expensive haircut and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He wore a custom Keaton suit that looked like it had been woven from shadows. "Victor," Griffin said, his voice dropping 10 degrees. The warmth was gone, replaced by absolute ice. "Victor Belmont." Victor Belmont, CEO of Belmont Logistics, Griffin's most ruthless competitor. The man Bjornsson had mentioned, the man who had almost cost Griffin his company. Victor's eyes slid from Griffin to Lena, and his smile widened, becoming predatory. "And who is this?" "Griffin, I didn't think you had a new consultant. You usually prefer them older, and with more legal experience." "Lena Petrova, my new head of global translation," Griffin said, the lie smooth and possessive. He was claiming her. Victor turned to Lena, his charm dialed to maximum. He extended a hand. "A pleasure, Mademoiselle Petrova." He then switched to flawless, aristocratic French, his tone laced with condescending charm, asking her if she was enjoying her first time in Geneva, and if Griffin was showing her a good time. Lena, terrified, looked at Griffin. He gave a curt, sharp nod. "Perform." The switch flipped. Lena's posture straightened. The fear vanished. She met Victor's gaze, and her reply, in the same perfect Parisian French, was not just fluent, it was witty and cold. She replied that she found Geneva functional, and that Mr. Hawke was a purposeful host. She used a subtle, derogatory slang for new money that was so high level, so specific to a certain class, that Victor's smile froze. He had been testing her. He hadn't expected that. Her accent was perfect, not just fluent, native. He looked at Griffin, then back at Lena. The predatory calculation in his eyes was instant. He had seen the weapon. "Remarkable," Victor said, switching back to English. "Truly remarkable. Griffin, you have a talent for finding unique assets." He took Lena's hand and kissed the knuckles, his eyes never leaving hers. "I hope we meet again, Miss Petrova. Very, very soon." He glided away, leaving a chill in his wake. Griffin's mood was ruined. He threw a few 100-franc notes on the table. "We're leaving. Now." "What? What was that?" Lena asked in the car, the velvet dress suddenly feeling like a shroud. "That was the man I've been fighting for 5 years," Griffin said, his jaw working. That was the man who tries to poach my clients, steal my data, and ruin my life. And I just handed him my new secret weapon on a silver platter. He turned to her, his eyes cold and assessing once more. The brief, human moment in the restaurant was gone. Kieran's full report came through. The report? Your background check, Lena. The one I ran when you were still unconscious in the café. You ran a check on me. I ran it the moment you spoke German, he said, his voice relentless. And I found it. Lenox Hill Hospital, 19 years ago, a car accident. Your parents. Lena stopped breathing. Don't. Please don't. They were linguists, Griffin pressed on, his voice clinical, as if reading a file. On their way to a university conference. You were in the back seat, age 5, a drunk driver. You were the only survivor. You were in a coma for 6 weeks. Please, she begged, tears streaming down her face. Please stop. You don't understand. Oh, I understand everything, he said, and there was a strange, horrified awe in his voice. They used an experimental treatment, Lena, an electromagnetic pulse therapy to stimulate the language centers of your brain. It was a fringe study. Your parents had enrolled you in it before they died. It was their life's work. The files are sealed, but the intake report is clear. Subject A, Petrova. You went into that coma a normal 5-year-old. You woke up like this. He stared at her, not with pity, but as if she were a piece of alien technology. This isn't a gift. It's not a quirk. It's a scar. It's a medical procedure. You're not a polyglot, Lena. You're a linguistic savant created by a machine. My God, it's not just language. You absorb data. That's how you knew the financial terms, the idioms. It's all just information. Lena curled into a ball against the leather door, a small broken sound escaping her. He had taken her one strange, secret thing, the one part of her that was hers, and pinned it to a medical file. He had defined her. He had given her a price tag. "Take me home," she sobbed, her voice raw. "Please, I'm done. I want to go home. You can keep the money. Just let me go." Griffin pulled his hand back. He had what he wanted. The how. He understood the asset. But as he looked at the woman crying in the back of his car, he realized he had made a terrible, terrible mistake. He had treated a person like a puzzle. And Victor Belmont had just seen the final piece. Griffin did not take her home. He took her to New York, but not to her decaying 4-block cage. He installed her in a new one, a gilded one, a vast, sterile penthouse at the Mandarin Oriental overlooking Central Park. It was another silent, luxurious prison, 800 feet in the sky. "You can't go back to the café," he said flatly, standing by the vast window. "You can't go back to your apartment. Not ever." "What are you talking about?" Lena said. She had not stopped crying on the flight. A long, silent, 8-hour journey of humiliation. "Belmont will have people watching you within the hour. He knows you're valuable. He saw what you did in Geneva. He saw you in that restaurant. You're not safe." "Safe?" "Or safe from him?" Lena shot back, a new, brittle anger in her voice. The revelation about her past hadn't just broken her. It had changed her. The shyness was still there, but beneath it, something hard and cold was forming. "You don't care if I'm safe, Griffin. You care that he doesn't get me. You care that he doesn't get your new machine." "They're the same thing," he snapped. "And yes, I am protecting my asset. I've already moved your grandmother. She's at a private Hawk Global facility in Connecticut. The best care. Undetectable. She's safe." Lena's face went white. The tears stopped, frozen. You moved her? You moved a dying woman, without my permission. I protected my leverage, he said, and the second the cold, honest word left his mouth, he regretted it. The asset, Lena repeated, her voice dead. The leverage. That's what I am. Lena, that's not. It's complicated. You're a person, but this ability is a corporate resource. I have to protect it. No, it's not complicated. She walked to the vast window, staring down at the city. The taxis looked like tiny, yellow bugs. You bought me. You found the receipt from Lenox Hill, and now you've locked me in a stockroom until you need to use me again. He couldn't deny it. He had his legal team draft a contract, a 5-year exclusivity deal. It guaranteed Matilda's care for life, a 7-figure salary, and total 24/7 security. In return, Lena Petrova and her unique, data-absorbing linguistic ability belonged exclusively to Hawk Global. He left the thick, leather-bound contract on the mahogany table. Sign it, Lena. It's the only way I can protect you. It's the only way I can protect us. For a week, Lena lived in the sky. She didn't sign the contract. She ordered room service, watched the silent, indifferent city move below her, and waited. The old noise in her head was back, but it was different now. It was mixed with Griffin's voice, cold and clinical. Asset, scar, machine, leverage. The quiet was broken only by Kieran, the security chief. He was the only person who entered the suite, a tall, stoic man who never spoke, just set down her food and observed her with a neutral gaze. One afternoon, he brought her lunch. As he was leaving, Lena said, her voice quiet, "You're from Galway, aren't you?" Kieran, who she had assumed was American, stopped dead. He turned, and a slow, shocked smile spread across his face. Yes. How in the world did you know that? My accent's been gone for 20 years. It's not, Lena said. You still drop the G on your participles, and you pronounce film with 2 syllables. It's there. If you listen. It was the first human connection she'd had in weeks. He's not a bad man, you know, Kieran said, his voice a soft, lilting rumble, the Irish accent suddenly more pronounced. The boss, I mean. He's driven. He sees the whole world as a machine. He's just trying to find the missing part. He thinks everyone else does too. And I'm the part, Lena said, her voice flat. You're the part he didn't know he needed, Kieran replied, his face grim. But you need to understand. He's terrified of Belmont. Victor doesn't just want to win. He wants to destroy. He won't just use you. He'll take you apart to see how you work. He won't see you as a person, Lena. He'll see you as a code breaker. He'll put you in a lab. The fear returned, ice cold. A lab. Like Lenox Hill. Griffin's just putting me in a nicer lab, she whispered. Maybe, Kieran said, his face grim. But he's the only one who can keep you out of Belmont's. That night, Victor Belmont found her. He didn't come to the hotel. He was smarter than that. A small encrypted tablet was delivered to her room, slipped past security by a compromised hotel employee who was paid $50,000 to place it on a room service tray. On it was a video message. Victor, looking relaxed on a yacht, a turquoise sea behind him. Ms. Petrova. Lena. I hope you're enjoying Griffin's hospitality. He does build such beautiful cages. I'm sure he's offered you a contract. I'm sure he's protecting you. The screen flickered. It showed surveillance footage, outside her old apartment, outside Café Grinzing, and then a shot of the new facility in Connecticut. A long lens, grainy shot of Matilda sleeping in a hospital bed. Lena's heart stopped. He thinks he's clever, Victor's voiceover said, But Hawk Global has leaks. Griffin is using your grandmother as leverage. It's classic. He's not protecting her. He's hiding her. From you. He's holding her hostage." The screen changed again. A document. The contract Griffin had left her. But it was a different version. It was the internal draft from Griffin's legal team, leaked by a lawyer on Victor's payroll. She zoomed in. Her eyes scanned the legalese. Her mind, which absorbed language, absorbed this too. The language of betrayal. Clause 12A, asset retention. In the event of a contract termination, by El Petrova, for any reason, all auxiliary benefits, including but not limited to the medical care for Monsieur Petrova, will be immediately and irrevocably terminated. Clause 14 Hawasi, non-compete. El Petrova agrees to a lifetime non-disclosure and non-compete, binding her from any linguistic work, personal or professional, for any entity, without the express written consent of Hawk Global. It wasn't a contract. It was a deed of ownership, a lifetime non-compete. He was leveraging her grandmother's life to buy her silence and her ability forever. He was putting her in a cage and throwing away the key. "He's not protecting you, Lena," Victor's voice purred. "He's burying you. On the other hand, I just want to see you fly. I have a counteroffer. No contracts, no cages, just opportunity. The Global Shipping Summit is in Dubai in 48 hours. Griffin needs you. He's trying to close a massive new energy transport route. It's his whole game. If you hesitate, if you show him that the asset is no longer under his control, his deal collapses. His whole company might follow. Meet me at the Armani Hotel in Dubai. I'll have a new life waiting for you. And I'll move your grandmother somewhere Griffin can never find her. The choice is yours, my dear. The gilded cage? Or the sky?" The video ended. Lena stared at the black screen. The betrayal was so total, so absolute, so clinical, it burned away the last of her fear. It burned away the shyness. It burned away the waitress. All that was left was a cold, pure, diamond-hard rage. She walked to the table and, with a steady hand, signed Griffin's contract. She called his private line. "I've signed it," she said, her voice flat and cold. "I'm ready for Dubai. I'm ready to be effective." The Burj Khalifa was a needle piercing the sky, a monument to impossible wealth. The summit was held in a vast, opulent ballroom, a sea of white thobes, dark suits, and the quiet, dangerous hum of global power. This wasn't a single deal. It was the future of energy transport for the next 50 years. Russian, Japanese, Emirati, and Brazilian consortiums were all at the table, all circling each other, all ready to feed. Griffin was tense. This was the biggest gamble of his career. The Odyssey deal was just the appetizer. This was the main course. "You're okay?" he asked, a rare, fumbling moment of concern. He saw the new, cold stillness in her. "I'm an asset," Lena replied, her voice emotionless. She was back in the Givenchy armor, a dark blue dress that made her look severe and powerful. "I'm effective. That's all that matters." The chill in her voice bothered him, but he had no time. The meeting began. It was chaos. Not the loud, messy chaos of the café, but a polite, brutal, high-stakes chaos. The meeting started in English, the global standard, but it was a disaster. Nuances were missed. Politeness was mistaken for agreement. Firmness was mistaken for insult. The Russians, led by a minister named Pyotr, were stone-faced and blunt. The Japanese, led by a Mr. Watanabe, were impenetrably polite. The Emiratis, the hosts, were the power brokers. "Mr. Watanabe," Griffin said, "my proposal offers a 20% reduction in LNG transport costs. That is an unparalleled offer." Watanabe smiled, a tiny, precise gesture, and bowed. He replied in Japanese, a short, polite-sounding sentence. Griffin's Berlitz translator. He says it is very interesting. Griffin smiled, relieved. Excellent, then we can— No, he doesn't. Lena's voice cut in, sharp and clear. The room stopped. Griffin stared at her. What? He didn't say it was interesting. He said, that is an object of interest. In Japanese business, it's a polite, formal dismissal. He's saying, no, but he's allowing you to save face. He thinks your offer is unsophisticated. Watanabe's smile didn't waver, but his eyes sharpened. He hadn't been seen. Pyotr, the Russian, laughed, a short, barking sound. He spoke in a rapid, guttural Russian, his words dismissive, gesturing at Griffin. Lena translated without missing a beat. He says, she's right. You're wasting our time, Hawk. Your numbers are for children. Griffin was hemorrhaging control. The deal was collapsing. He looked at Lena, his eyes wide and pleading. Fix this. Lena stood up, and this time it wasn't the language taking over. It wasn't the machine. It was her. She addressed Watanabe in flawless, formal, business-level Japanese. She didn't just translate, she argued. She acknowledged his point of interest, and then pivoted, using a classic Japanese negotiation tactic, reframing Griffin's offer not as a cost reduction, but as a harmonization of mutual interests. She appealed to their critical need for long-term supply chain stability, a need that she knew, from absorbing the pre-meeting chatter, Belmont couldn't fill. Watanabe listened, his head cocked. He was no longer smiling. He was listening. Then she turned to Pyotr. In hard, precise Russian, she countered his bluntness. She didn't apologize. She attacked. She cited specific maritime laws from The Hague and fuel cost analyses from Hawk Global's own internal data. Data Griffin hadn't even thought to use. She proved, in his own language, that his assumptions were 10 years out of date. Pyotr's bushy eyebrows shot up. She was a whirlwind. She moved between Japanese, Russian, Portuguese for the Brazilian team, and Arabic for the Emirati hosts. She wasn't just translating, she was moderating. She was the center of the room. She was directing the flow of power, anticipating arguments, diffusing conflicts and building bridges. She took Griffin's clumsy, blunt offer and rewove it into a complex, beautiful, and irresistible tapestry. Griffin watched in stunned, silent awe. This wasn't the echo. This wasn't the conduit. This wasn't the asset. This was the maestro. This was the entire orchestra. After 2 hours, she had done the impossible. She had forged a consensus. The consortiums were nodding. The deal was happening. Griffin was euphoric. He was triumphant. He had won. As the ministers began signing the preliminary accord, Griffin leaned over to Lena, his voice low and giddy with victory, all his fears forgotten. I'll double the contract. I'll triple it. My God, Lena, you are a miracle. I'm an asset, she finished for him, her voice like ice. She stood up. She walked to the front of the room. She picked up the microphone. Excuse me, gentlemen, she said, her voice ringing out in perfect, unaccented English. The room fell silent. What is she doing? Griffin hissed to Kieran. Before you finalize this agreement, Lena said, her eyes locked on Griffin, you should all be aware of the true nature of Hawk Global's head of translation. Griffin went pale. Lena, no, stop. My name is Lena Petrova. I am not a translator. I am, as Mr. Hawk calls me, an asset. I am the product of an experimental medical procedure, and I am here today because Mr. Hawk is holding the life-saving medical care of my dying grandmother hostage. The room exploded. Shouts of scandal, dishonor, coercion erupted in 4 different languages. She's lying. She's hysterical. Griffin shouted, standing up, his face ashen. "Am I?" Lena's voice was lethal. She clicked a button on the laptop connected to the main projector. The image of the signed accord was replaced. On the massive screen, for all to see, was the internal contract. Her signature at the bottom. She used the laser pointer. Clause 12A. In the event of termination, all auxiliary benefits, including the medical care for Monsieur Petrova, will be immediately and irrevocably terminated. And my personal favourite, Clause 4, a lifetime non-compete, not for Hawk Global's competitors, for any linguistic work. He wasn't protecting me, he was burying me. Watanabe stood up, his face a mask of cold fury. "This is dishonourable, Mr. Hawk. We do not do business with men who trade in human lives. The deal is off." Pyotr was already on his phone, presumably to the Financial Times. The deal wasn't just dead. It was toxic. Griffin's reputation, his entire company, was evaporating in real time. "Lena, why?" Griffin choked out, his empire crumbling around him. He wasn't angry. He was just broken. "I was going to—" "You took my voice," she said, her own voice shaking. But not with fear. With rage. "And you put a price tag on it. You took my family, and you put her in a cage. You asked me to translate, Griffin. So I'm translating. I'm translating this." She gestured to the contract on the screen. "This is who you are. This is the fine print." In the back of the room, by the exit, Victor Belmont was watching. He caught Lena's eye. He smiled and gave her a small, approving nod. He was already moving toward the Emirati minister, his hand outstretched, a predator ready to pick up the pieces of the kill. Lena had done it. She had destroyed Griffin Hawk. But as she watched Victor, a man she knew was just a different kind of monster, move in to poach the deal, and as she saw Griffin's face, not angry, but utterly, completely, and finally empty, she didn't feel triumph. She felt nothing at all, just the return of the awful, screaming noise. The fallout was immediate. The Global Shipping Summit was a catastrophic failure for Hawk Global. The stock plunged 40% overnight. Griffin was facing board inquiries and shareholder lawsuits. Lena disappeared. Victor Belmont, true to his word, had a car waiting. He spirited her out of Dubai to a private villa in Oman. He also moved Matilda to a state-of-the-art clinic in Switzerland. "You're a free woman, Lena," Victor told her over champagne. "You did what no one else could. You broke him. You are magnificent." "What about the contract I signed?" Lena asked, her voice hollow. Victor laughed. "That? It's void. Duress. Coercion. No court would uphold it. You're brilliant. Now, I have a new project. A hostile takeover of a Korean tech firm. I need your unique perspective." Lena looked at him. The same words. A different suit. A different cage. "No," she said. "Don't be naive." Victor's smile tightened. "You need me. Your grandmother's care is very expensive." "No," Lena said again. "I just need a phone." She made one call. To Kieran. "I don't know if you're still working for him," she said, "but give him a message. Victor Belmont is at the Sheddy in Muscat, and he just admitted, on tape, to poaching me, a Hawk Global employee under contract, to sabotage the Dubai summit. It's called tortious interference. Tell Griffin. If he's smart, he'll know what to do." She hung up and walked out of the villa with nothing but the clothes on her back. 6 months later, The Hague, the International Criminal Court. A young Rwandan witness was on the stand, his voice trembling as he spoke in Kinyarwanda, recounting a village massacre. The court translator was struggling, the words coming out flat. A woman stepped forward. "If the court will allow," Lena Petrova said. She turned to the witness and began to speak to him in his own language. Her voice was soft, empathetic. The witness wept and, for the first time, truly spoke. Lena, her own eyes filled with tears, turned to the judges. She translated not just his words, but his soul. The court was silent, shattered. She had found her purpose, running a pro bono foundation, providing linguistic support for victims. She still lived with the noise, but it no longer hurt. That evening, a package arrived at her small apartment. Inside was an old, out-of-print Basque language dictionary. Tucked inside was a handwritten note. Lena, Victor settled. The interference claim was enough. The stock is recovering. I've spent the last 6 months dismantling that contract. I've also liquidated the Lenox Hill files. They're gone. No one will ever look at that report again. Your grandmother's care is endowed. It's from an anonymous trust. There are no strings. I am sorry for seeing you as a key when you were the door. I'm learning a new language. It's the hardest one I've ever attempted. I'm not very good at it. But I'm practicing. Yours, Griffin. Lena ran her fingers over the dictionary. She opened it to a random page. The words were alien, strange. She sounded one out. It was just a word. It made no noise. For the first time in her life, Lena Petrova smiled. She had a new language to learn, and she would do it the hard way. One word at a time. That was the story of Lena Petrova. But the real question is, who was the real villain? Was it Griffin Hawke, the man who saw a person and put a price tag on her? Or Victor Belmont, who offered a false freedom to get the same thing? Lena's gift was a curse until she learned to own it. She had to destroy 2 of the most powerful men in the world just to be free. What do you think? Was her revenge in Dubai justified? Or did she go too far? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. This story took a lot to put together. So if you felt that twist, if you felt Lena's struggle, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And if you want more real-life stories with drama that feels like it's ripped from the headlines, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss the story we have for you next week. Thank you for listening.